From changing one of the goriest moments ever shown in manga to some character features that became a little bit over-exaggerated, these are 21 major changes One Piece made from the manga. And let's start with the massively well-known tattoo belonging to fan-favorite character Ace. When we were first introduced to Portcullis D. Ace in the anime, we see his iconic white beard back tattoo. But in the manga, instead of the cross, he has this symbol. Now, I know how this looks, however, this symbol is actually the manji, a symbol of prosperity, happiness, and luck. But obviously in the West, it would be known for a very different reason, so it was changed to be a cross. And a lot of these anime changes were actually done for the West. The Marines are some of the toughest foes Luffy and other pirates have ever had to face, and one of these Marines is particularly ruthless thanks to his magma fruit. However, perhaps his most ruthless moment in the manga became censored for Western release. Following the death of Ace, Whitebeard, in a fit of rage, blindly throws himself at Akainu only to get his mustache blown off. But in the manga, Akainu actually blows off a huge chunk of Whitebeard's head. This was, of course, changed in the anime, so as to not be censored by the Western authorities. And don't be thinking that these are the only things that the West forced Toei to censor. This next entry was way too terrifying for a children's audience. Bartolomeo is everyone's favorite Luffy fanboy, but sometimes he can take his stan culture a bit too far. Like this one time where Bartolomeo just met Luffy in the Coliseum, and some random guy just started bad-mouthing Luffy in front of him. As you can imagine, Bartolomeo did not let that slide. He threatened this guy that he would cut his tongue off. First off, that sounds horrendous, but in the manga, this took a very different turn, as Bartolomeo did, in fact, follow through on his threat. Yeah, he cut the guy's tongue off when he talked badly about Luffy. I don't know about you guys, but if I was a pirate, I would certainly want someone like this on my pirate crew, dude. Anyway, one of my favorite things about the Straw Hat Pirates is how well they're able to defend each other, but sometimes this does not go exactly to plan. Does anyone remember Jango, the hypnotist from Captain Kuro's crew turned Marine? Well, one of Jango's signature weapons is none other than his pendulum, used for both hypnosis and offense, such as when he threw it at Luffy. Luffy in the anime is actually able to catch this in his mouth, however, in the manga, Luffy is a little more unfortunate, since this actually hits him in the back of the head. Ouch! Not as severe as cutting someone's tongue off, but Toei still thought it necessary to cut that one out. I think this next entry would probably have hurt way more in the manga than the anime. So we all know that Sanji gave some food to a stranded pirate named Jin. But then Jin came back with his captain. Now this guy was really rude to everyone in the restaurant, and nobody wanted to serve him. But Sanji actually said that he'd do it. So during everything that went on with Don Krieg and Sanji, the Baratie crew held up these bizarrely large kitchen utensils to hurt Sanji with. However, the manga takes this a bit differently, since in the manga, they actually hold up guns. I think I would take a giant spoon to the head over a gun any day. Next up, there are certain characters within One Piece who really don't get enough credit for how ruthless they can really be. This is largely because they've had their ruthlessness toned down massively, and one unfortunate casualty of this is Bellamy. In this scene, while Bellamy loses a card game to another pirate named Roshio, he gets incredibly angry at his opponent to the point of beating him and throwing him out a window off screen. Though in the manga, he takes his anger to a whole new level as he just straight up stabs his opponent in the hand and then lights him on fire. Goodness, I would not want to lose in a card game to this guy. Lose my life in the process. And this is not the only instance of someone's ruthlessness being toned down for the anime. During his battle with Luffy in the Miro world, Katakuri and Luffy are both dealing powerful blows to each other. Though these blows are nowhere near as powerful as what he did in the manga, since he actually almost ripped off half of Luffy's whole body. In the anime, however, he has to settle for a tiny amount of blood. I'm surprised that wasn't censored too, to be honest. Now, if there's one thing that actually deserved to be changed, it's definitely this next scene involving the people of Wano. You see, during this time in Wano, everything was controlled by Kaido and Orochi, meaning there was barely any food or water and people were struggling just to survive. So when Luffy comes back from Bakura Town with a whole 2-story wagon just filled up to the brim with food, everyone was so thankful to see this. But before this, we see in the anime these ladies crying in a room. Now, this is already quite an upsetting plotline. However, the manga made this whole thing even worse. Since in the manga, the ladies are all starving and actually plotting to end their own lives. Yeah, this would never have been received well in the West. And there's one thing that clearly the West cannot stand, as they have actually changed it multiple times. The universal signal for absolute disrespect is giving someone the middle finger. All across the world, it has become one of the most controversial things you can do. Less so over time, but you get the point. It's incredibly apparent in the East, though. So did you know that this scene where Law and Kid are in the auction house, it actually goes down a lot more aggressively in the manga? Because in the manga, Law just straight up flips off Kid. Though the show creators decided this was definitely too inappropriate for the anime, so it was cut. This was, however, not the only instance of the middle finger being cut. You see, during the whole Cake Island arc, the Straw Hat Pirates totally crashed Big Mom's tea party and ruined her cake, which caused Big Mom to get all crackhead crazy for another one. So Sanji, Pudding, and Lola decide to go to Cocoa Island and bake another cake. All the while Pudding is totally crushing on Sanji, but since she doesn't want to come off too strong, she decides to tell him that he's not her master. But in the manga, she just flips him off, which is way over the top. Of all the father-like figures within One Piece, perhaps my most favorite is Zeff, Sanji's substitute father who only wants what's best for Sanji. So back when Sanji worked on a ship, his ship was attacked by a pirate crew, the Cook Pirates, whose captain was Redfoot Zeff. And during all of this, there was a massive storm which caused the ship to sink. Following the shipwrecking, Zeff is forced to chop off his own leg with an anchor, which is the most metal thing you can do as far as I'm concerned, in order to save Sanji from drowning, though it goes a little bit different in the manga. Since in the manga, Zeff does not lose his leg initially, but rather he eats it in order to survive. This makes the entire Zeff storyline even more tragic since he does all that he can in order to keep Sanji alive, which you could argue he does in the anime too, but like, the manga is just way more brutal. It also makes a lot more sense as to how Zeff survived on the stranded island if you go with the manga route, but anyway, that change is minor compared to this next change that took over 800 episodes to fix. For you see, in the One Piece anime, we never really got to see how Luffy got his iconic face scar, but it wasn't until over 800 episodes later, we got to actually see how he got it. And for anyone who's only watched the anime, they would have been relieved to finally discover how Luffy got his face scar. Though the people who read the manga, they already knew how this happened, since it's literally the first chapter of the manga. I honestly I have no explanation for why this change was made. If you do, please leave it in the comments below. I would love to know. Extreme violence is not too allowed in most Western media, especially way back when One Piece was first being adapted. And as such, this caused a lot of parts to be changed from One Piece being a shonen and all that from the manga to the anime. Perhaps one of the most extreme instances of this is when Foxy and Luffy are having their final showdown and everyone's watching. And out of nowhere, Foxy falls into this pit full of spikes. Just narrowly he avoids being stabbed by them, and as I'm sure you can guess, the manga definitely had different opinions on how this went down. Since Foxy actually does get impaled by the spikes. In a very gruesome manner, I might add. Seriously, one of the most painful acupunctures ever seen. Prove me wrong. Don't actually prove me wrong. I want to see it. Yet, for some reason, this is not the only instance of someone being stabbed that has been changed in the anime. There's a lot of stabbing in this show, apparently. You see, during the Thriller Bark arc, we meet Absalom, and he's eaten the Clear fruit, which gives him the ability to turn invisible, hence the name Clear. So when Sanji goes to save Nami from Absalom, he just can't seem to, well, see him. So suddenly he gets knocked down and struggles to get back up, which is a very weird thing for Sanji since he always manages to get back up. Well, this is actually because in the manga, Sanji gets stabbed through his chest, meaning he physically could not get up. Knowing what these scenes were originally in the manga actually makes the scenes in the anime make way more sense. Now, so far, all of these changes have been a result of gore, violence, rude behavior. However, this next change was definitely done for a way different reason. If there is one thing One Piece is known for, okay, well, a thing One Piece is known for, a piece. If there is one thing One Piece is known for, it's the personalities of some of the characters, and I put that in quotation marks. Perhaps one of the characters whose personality changed the most is Viola, with her personality just being larger than life. 4 times larger, to be precise, in the anime than in the manga. And actually, we see that a ton throughout the whole series, with a lot of the women's personalities changing after a whopping 1 episode. Okay, Toei, what audience are you trying to shoot for exactly? This change just seems a little bit not only intentional, but way over exaggerated. Moving on, smoking is a taboo part of culture that is pretty much widely accepted as not a good thing everywhere in the world. And of course, as a result, One Piece had to make quite a few changes from the manga to the anime. Throughout the manga, Sanji is often found to be smoking a cigarette. At the time of the creation of the One Piece manga, smoking was a lot less taboo than it is nowadays. But in the One Piece manga, you can see a panel of Sanji as a kid smoking a cigarette, saying he's grown up now. Now, of course, when the showrunners began to create One Piece, they thought it would be best to not show kid Sanji smoking a cigarette, you know, so kids don't follow in his footsteps. This change makes quite a lot of sense. However, we're going right back to gruesome with this next change. We go all the way back to Nami's backstory. We all know that Arlong invaded her village and was demanding a living tax from every citizen. We also know that her mother, Bellamy, tried her best to hide her and her sister, Nojiko, because they did not have enough money to pay said tax. Now, that didn't work, because Arlong ended up finding out, and since Bellamy could only pay for Nami and Nojiko, Arlong shot her in the chest. However, in the manga, Arlong shoots Bellamy in the head. The argument for why this change was made is that being shot in the chest would cause you a slow, painful death, whereas being shot in the head would cause you to die pretty much instantly. And somehow that is more I don't know. I guess Toei just didn't want kids seeing people die from a headshot. Yeah, chest shots are where it's at. Oh my gosh, don't take that out of context. Speaking of taking things out of context, suggestive outfits are of course a staple of One Piece, but sometimes these outfits can take it a step too far. This is what happened to Vivi's outfit. You see, during the Reverse Mountain arc, Vivi was working undercover as one of the Baroque Works agents. So when she infiltrated Laboon with her partner, we got to see a pretty daring choice of clothing. And of course, the shirt in the manga is considerably more suggestive than what we got to see in the anime. And this could be because the manga outfit is insane. I mean, really, it really highlights Vivi's personality. Speaking of personalities, like actually this time, a key part of Luffy's is none other than his iconic straw hat, and he does just about everything he can in order to protect it. He has not always been successful, as during his first battle with Buggy the Pirate, Luffy's hat gets badly damaged. With Luffy obviously distraught over this, Nami decided to fix up Luffy's hat for him and give it back to him as a thanks for rescuing her. Unfortunately though, mere moments later, Luffy damaged the hat once again by sticking his finger right through it. In retaliation, Nami decides that she's had enough and pokes Luffy in the eye with a needle. Okay, that's pretty gory. And as such, the showrunners decided to just have her get angry instead, like a frackin' normal person. We've spoken a lot about key characters in this video. However, one character we've missed so far is Zoro. We'll look no further, since we have that one time that Zoro went toe-to-toe with Helmeppo, only he did this a little bit differently in the manga. You see, when Helmeppo was causing a ruckus in the bar and started picking on Rika, Zoro was there listening to everything. So when Zoro told Helmeppo to get lost, well, Helmeppo didn't get lost. So he sets his dog on him, with Zoro hitting him with a chair. However, in the manga, Zoro just kills the dog. I think I prefer the anime version of this one. I'm not gonna lie. I don't know about you. And perhaps saving one of the most controversial changes ever made in the anime from the manga for last comes from everyone's favorite ladies' man, Sanji. Sanji is, of course, a bit of a controversial character in the anime, but he gets even more controversial in the manga. Remember that one time Sanji tried to buy a woman? You don't? Oh, well, someone didn't read the manga. Yeah, that happened. During the Sabaody arc, Cammy goes missing. More aptly, she was kidnapped, so the crew tries their best to find her and are led to the auction house where she is supposedly placed. Now, when the crew got here, they all just stand around while they auction people off, which at one point, a girl comes on the stage, and Sanji decides to say the most out-of-pocket thing in this situation. He asks Nami, can we spare some money for this girl? This, of course, is very controversial, and as such was entirely removed from the anime.